All right, guys, welcome to a special edition of Red Letters Rewind, where we talk about sports through the lens of faith. And today, we've got to talk about sportsmanship, integrity, and fair play. That's right, we're going to look at this situation with Kirby Smart during the Auburn, Georgia game and how that led to an official being apparently relieved of his duties for life. So, today we're going to talk about what happens when the lines gets blurred from sportsmanship, fair play, and integrity, and doing the right thing versus winning. That's right, on today's Red Letter Rewind. Stay tuned. Okay, so I've alluded to it on previous episodes, and today we have to go in deep depth. So Kirby Smart, during the Auburn, Georgia game, it was 3rd and 9, and the time clock is running down. Kirby Smart takes off down the sidelines, signaling timeout, clearly timeout as everybody's seen, to the official. The official blows his whistle, stops play, and Kirby Smart starts yelling, "No, clapping, clapping." Now, Kirby Smart said in his post-game interview he was claiming that Auburn was clapping, and he was just trying to get the official's attention, denying completely that he was trying to call timeout. However, I think if we all look at it through the lens of fair play, Kirby Smart was clearly calling for a timeout. Now, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not an Auburn fan. I'm not a Georgia fan. But I'm a college football fan. And to see that play out the way it did just rubs me the wrong way. Now, I don't know Kirby Smart. I don't know his claims, whether or not he claims to be Christian or have faith. Regardless, that was not fair play. Kirby Smart did not act in good faith. He was not identifying and exemplifying good sportsmanship to his players, the other coaches, the officials, or the fans who follow him. I was very disappointed with Kirby Smart. Look, he's one of the best coaches in the country. We can't deny that. Georgia is a powerhouse program. But leadership is more than X's and O's. Leadership is how you lead in every situation. The Bible says in Proverbs 11:3, "The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity." In coaching and in life, duplicity shows up when coaches pretend to call timeouts and they claim not to be calling a timeout. Duplicity shows out when we do one thing with the intention of a different outcome. Integrity means you're the same person regardless of whether the cameras are on you or not. Because in the long run, your integrity will take you farther than evil ever will. So let's talk about the aftermath. So as you can imagine, Auburn's coaches were pretty furious about this play specifically. But however, there were several other plays during this game that Auburn coaches specifically called out. Now, after games, coaches are allowed to send in tape of plays that they thought were controversial, that maybe the officials missed. Officials can use this for training for future or for reprimanding officials. Now, in most cases, what happens is you never hear anything. The SEC office will review these plays. They will have an internal discussion with the officials, with all officials, not just those that are on that game. Now, it's been reported that Auburn turned in 11 plays from this game that they said were questionable and should be looked at. Now, let's go back a prior week before when Auburn played Oklahoma. There were some missed calls in that game. The SEC officiating office came back and publicly apologized to Auburn for missing a key play in that game. So this is the second time that we've made headlines from Auburn in regards to some questionable calls. Now, so Auburn makes the 11 calls for this specific game to Georgia, and apparently now it's been reported that the SEC office has said 9 of those plays were indeed plays that should have gone the other way. 9 plays in one game. Now, those 9 plays have apparently led to, at least reported, that Ken Williamson, who is the white hat, he's the lead official for that game against Auburn with Georgia. He has now apparently been banned permanently from calling SEC games. This is huge. But let's not look at Ken Williamson specifically. There are some things about his past that maybe can call into question. There may be some things in his current state that can call into question whether or not he should have been calling that game specifically. I will mention one, which will lead into a further discussion. So Ken Williamson is a SEC official, a white hat, but that is his part-time job. That's right. SEC officials are part-time employees from the SEC, and they're typically paid game to game. The SEC generated over $808 million worth of revenue last year. They paid out additional schools and at roughly $52.5 million per school. Yet, their officials who are in charge of making sure these games are fair play work for part-time. They work on Saturdays, and then they go home. Ken Williamson's a real estate agent in Tuscaloosa. More on that in times to come. But let's focus on the specifics. These SEC officials who are part-time are held not to fair play rules where they have to answer questions after games from reporters. If that would have been the case, a reporter could have asked the official who granted the timeout for Kirby Smart, what did you see and why was that overturned? They could have asked the question on 2 touchdown plays back to back when they called a touchdown initially, went back to review, and then they called those touchdowns no good. They could have been asked the question, well, on the touchdown play that you went back and called no good, there was a fumble. Why did you blow the whistle dead when there was a fumble on the play? But those refs are not held accountable. Everything is remained secret inside the SEC office, which just leads to more questions and more allegations that the SEC officials are not fair. Proverbs 10:9 says, Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. So, what can that teach us about today and these allegations and the apparent dismissal of this official permanently? The SEC, first of all, they should have full-time officials to where they can study film just like coaches do, just like players do. They can go back and correct each other. They can learn from their mistakes. The SEC office should not hide behind this rule that they will not speak publicly about officiating. There's millions of dollars at stake. There's coaches' futures at stake. There's players who are 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. They have to answer questions post-game in the heat of the moment about specific plays. But the officials hop in a van and ride home, only to show up the next Saturday to another game to call without ever answering questions. And the SEC office hides behind a blanket of questions that they never answer publicly. As you can see, this is a pretty passionate discussion, but these are things that need to be answered. But what about us? What about us everyday people who are fans? We're not Kirby Smart. We're not an SEC official. But you face the same tests every day. When you're attempted to fake something, hide something, or justify something just because it's easier or just because it might get you out of something, that's where integrity grows and cracks. Colossians 3:23, Paul writes, "Whatever you do, work heartily, as the Lord and not for men." Whether you're a coach, a player, or a parent, your integrity isn't just about the rules. It's about what you present. When walking in integrity, you reflect God's character. You lead differently. You compete differently. And people notice. In sports, we admire the highlight reel. We love seeing the great catches. We love seeing coaches get passionate on the sideline and arguing for our teams. But sometimes integrity and sportsmanship means more than that. I can remember coaching sports teams, basketball teams, and there would be a coach across on the other sideline who would just work the refs. I was working at a table, we're keeping score in a basketball league, and this coach just constantly, every call that was made, would get on the refs and ask why, and he would argue back and forth, and he would try to work the refs. When the ref eventually had to say, "Look, coach, you got to sit down. You got to let me do my job. We can talk afterwards." And this was church league. How much more high pressure are these officials in? And when coaches try to bend the rules, that puts officials in a very bad spot. And when an official can't come and answer for those things, it puts the league in a hard spot. And when the league isn't forthcoming, it puts all of us questioning the integrity of a sport that we all love. So this week, as I rewind what happened in the SEC, it makes us remember that Kirby Smart's moment reminds us that doing the clever thing isn't always the right thing. It reminds us in the Ken Williamson story that a system without accountability eventually collapses. And our own choices remind us that integrity isn't built under pressure, it's revealed there. Jesus said in Luke 16:10, "Whoever can be trusted with a very little can also be trusted with a lot." Let's be trustworthy in the little things, at home, at work, in our jobs, on the ball field, in our neighborhoods, with our friends, because that's where character starts. Thanks for watching Red Letter Rewind, this special episode. If you made you think, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about the Auburn situation, the Ken Williamson situation, and anything else. So stay strong, stay honest, and as always, play with heart and live with integrity. And this is Kevin with Red Letter Sports.